It's Christmas weekend. I want to get back to spending some time with my family, but I still wanted to produce a video, at least for this week. So no fancy intros, no fancy B-rolls. Let's just jump right into it. So last week I released a video on my dual battery install in the Jeep, and I wanted to kind of just do a follow-up video to that. No frills, just a discussion on whether it's better to get a dual battery setup in your vehicle or just get power banks. For those of you who are new and are just getting into the space, this is going to be a great video for you. I'm sure some of you who don't really have the gear yet probably went out and hit the trails and went camping and realized I have no way to power anything, and you knew that that was a problem you needed solving. And I'm also pretty sure by now you've done your research and have weighed out some options, and you're still trying to figure out what is the best way for you to get power at camp. Now I know there are different people with different needs. There are some of us who go to camp with the bare minimum. They leave behind all the technology, all the comforts of home, because this is their way of getting away from all of that. Meanwhile, we also can't deny that there are certain necessities that we need to have powered up at camp. We might need to keep our phone charged in case we need to make an emergency call, or maybe you're hitting the trails every day and you need to get your handheld radios charged back up, or you might cook with electrical and you have an electrical stove, or some of you really need your coffee and you need your coffee maker with you. Like, to you, that's essential. All of that stuff does need power, especially when you're sitting at camp and the vehicle's not turned on, and you know you don't want to drain your starter battery in your vehicle. You need to have something else to be able to power all the other little things that you like to bring with you when you're off-road or overlanding. So let's start with dual battery. Now, let me just first say that a dual battery setup is not something that, if you're just new to the space, that you definitely need to get right away. For some, you might want that, but we don't get our first off-road rig and the first thing we think about, oh, dual battery. It's not one of those high priority things. I feel like there are much more important things that we need to address first before spending the money on a dual battery setup. That being said though, if you decide to get dual battery setup in your Jeep, some of the pros about having dual battery is that it's a self-contained thing. There's nothing else you need to bring with you. It's already in your vehicle. So anything that you need to have charged up, it's already there, especially with like a fridge. You know, before I was kind of plugging the fridge into the vehicle when the vehicle is moving. And then when we get to camp, I unplug it from the vehicle and I plug it into a power bank. It was just another step. Whereas now with a dual battery setup, the fridge stays in there. And then when I get to camp, I just turn the vehicle off and the fridge is running off that secondary battery. I am good. I don't have to unplug or do anything. And then on top of that, there's solar built in so that that's charging that battery when I'm not on the move. And when we are on the move, what's great about having dual battery is that your alternator is now charging your starter battery and your dual battery, and you are not risking your vehicle not being able to start the next day. What's also awesome is that sometimes dual battery setups cost less than buying a power bank. When you buy these power bank systems, they can get pretty pricey depending on how much wattage or watt hours you get. But whereas a dual battery setup, you're really just buying a battery and then you're buying a DC to DC charger so you can connect that battery to your vehicle and let your vehicle charge it up when you're on the move. So if you have the patience or you have the wherewithal to install a dual battery setup, you can save yourself a lot of money going this route because it tends to be cheaper as far as parts and basically install and gear. Now, another great thing about dual battery is that you can set this up any way you want. It's only limited by your know-how and your imagination. You can have things in there like 12-volt sockets, so you can plug in anything that requires 12 volts, fridges or anything like that. Or you can get an inverter, so anything that has an AC plug to it, you can plug it into that, especially the higher amperage devices, things like blow dryers if some of you need that, or electric blankets, things that have an AC port. You now have an option of plugging that in as well. And you can get all your off-road lights, things that are hardwired to the vehicle, you can plug into your dual battery, like my roof lights and my rock lights. Those are things that are right now plugged into the starter battery, and I use them when we're night trailing. But when I get to camp and the vehicle gets turned off, sometimes I want to keep my roof lights and my rock lights on so that I have light at camp, but that is now draining my starter battery. Well, I can move all that to my secondary battery system. That way, when we get to camp, all those lights that I want to leave on is draining the secondary battery and not screwing me over by draining my starter battery. Anything that's hardwired to your vehicle, you can hardwire directly into your dual battery and everything is still self-contained. That is, for me, the biggest advantage of dual batteries, that everything is self-contained. Everything is there wherever I go. I have power and I'm ready. The downside about having dual battery is that it's not portable. And if you have more than one vehicle that you're using, then you can't bring one system from one vehicle to another. Which leads me to power banks. Power banks are an awesome thing to have. Why? Portability. Like, that is the number one reason anyone would want a power bank. You have two vehicles, no problem. Bring it from one vehicle to the other. You don't have to spend twice to get a dual battery setup in all of your rigs. In fact, that's how we've been running before I had a dual battery setup in the Jeep. We have the Jeep, we have the 4Runner, whichever one we're taking that day, we just load our power bank into that and we are good to go. Great thing at camp too, like if you want to take your power bank out of the vehicle, set it down on a table to power up your electric stove or your coffee maker, you can do so. You don't have to bring everything close to the vehicle to do all that stuff. Hell, if you're going to the beach and you want to listen to music, you have a Bluetooth speaker, you want to be able to charge up your Kindle, your e-reader or whatever, you can bring this with you. For us, the number one reason why we like having a power bank is because we live in a state where we have a ton of storms, a ton of power outages. Some of you might live in the north where you get winter storms and winter power outages. Then if you want something that has dual purpose, not just something that you use for camping and overlanding, but something you can also use at home, then having a power bank allows you that kind of flexibility. Now, when it comes to pricing out power banks, you can't really do a fair comparison to a dual battery setup because it's going to depend on what size capacity power bank you get. For example, the first one I ever got, the very first power bank I owned was a Jackery 240, which I still use to this day. It's so compact, and I take that and bring it into the tent to charge up my phone and whatever else I might have used up that day. You can definitely save yourself money by getting the lower capacity power banks, albeit it's not going to charge much, or you can spend more and get the higher capacity ones. The way you kind of want to look at it, and if you've watched this channel, you know I've said this before, I tend to harp on it, is that power banks usually charge $1 per watt hour. So this is a 1200 watt 768 watt hour power bank. So 768 watt hours, you're looking to spend about 750 to 800 bucks for a power bank like this. That being said though, a lot of companies like Blue Eddy and Jackery and Goal Zero and even Zero Breeze, they will give you power banks at a much cheaper price sometimes. Like they'll cut their prices down. So because power banks are so like common now, they're not as expensive as they were before. Now there are so many power banks out there that you can get them at a much cheaper cost. So what is the difference between watts and watt hours? Well, watts is what the capacity of this thing is. Like what is the power this thing will produce, whereas watt hours is how long that'll last you. Think about it in terms of a vehicle, right? You know that the vehicle has this amount of horsepower. That's how much power that vehicle will crank out. Now, how long, what's the distance that'll take you on a full tank of gas is a different scenario altogether. So this is a 1200 watt power bank, 768 watt hours. So that means that you're going to get 1200 watts worth of power on here. And if you max this thing out with all the devices, which I doubt you'll ever do, that takes up like 1200 watts, then it'll last you at 768 watt hours just a little bit over an hour and a half before this thing completely dies. So let's compare that to my dual battery setup. I have a LiTime lithium ion battery in there, and that one is 1268-ish watt hour battery. So that means 768 watt hour power bank, 1268 watt hour lithium ion battery. And it's usually sold for about 500 bucks. Right now it's on sale for 265 or 260. So it's actually way cheaper to get that battery than this one. But you're gonna need to get a DC to DC charger. And I would recommend something like a Victron or a Red Arc. What I have is the Red Arc BCDC 1225D. That one comes in right about 460. Then figure in all the materials needed like wires, terminals, things like that, fuses, circuit breakers, all that stuff. You're looking at about $1,000 to build a dual battery setup. This one comes in right about 750. So you're saving money with that, right? But you're only getting 768 watt hours, whereas on this one, you're getting 1,268-ish watt hours with a dual battery setup. The thing about power banks too is you can charge this in a multiple of ways. You can plug this up at home and use AC to charge this back up, and that's usually a lot faster. So I always charge up all my power banks before we head out. I get them all to 100% and load up. Or you can plug this into the vehicle, so while you're on the trails, then you can just plug this to a 12-volt socket and then your vehicle will charge this up, albeit it's not going to be as fast. It'll take about 6 hours to get this thing fully charged up, whereas dual battery, the alternator's charging both batteries at the same time, you're going to get that charged up a lot faster. But when you're at camp, and let's say you're stationary, and you don't want to drain your vehicle's battery, this can also take solar, just like a dual battery setup. The downside though about a power bank is that anything that's hardwired to your vehicle, you can't plug into this, right? So like all your off-road lights, scene lights, rock lights, things that you want on at camp when the vehicle's turned off, it's already plugged into the vehicle. And if it's plugged into your starter battery, well, then it's gonna drain that. You can't just unplug your lights because they've already been hardwired and plug it into something like this. So anything that's hardwired to your vehicle, then a power bank is not going to do you any good. The other downside about having power banks is that it's going to take up space. The dual battery setup, it's already enclosed in the vehicle, like that's it. It's there and it doesn't take up that much room. Whereas this, you have to bring this with you, and they're not always light. Like some of these can get really heavy. These bigger ones have some weight to them, and especially if you're bringing it to the beach or you're bringing it wherever, you have to carry it with you. You got to load it into the vehicle, take it out. It was never really a big deal for me, but just keep that in mind that it's something that will take up some cargo space in your vehicle. And then finally, the downside, and it's probably never going to happen to you, but if you've ever used up your power bank where it can no longer be charged up anymore, then you scrap the whole thing and you buy a whole new one. Whereas to do a battery setup, if the battery dies and it's crap already, it's not working well anymore, then the system stays in place and I just replace the battery. Just like your vehicle, your battery dies, you replace the battery. Whereas this, you're replacing the whole unit when this whole thing dies. But to be honest, I don't ever see us using up our power banks to the point where they're no longer working. So what's my take? Well, if you're new in this overland space, then I would suggest going with a portable power bank just because it's easy. There's no wiring involved, there's no installation. You buy a power bank, bring it with you, and you now have power. That's how I've been running for years until I was able to figure out what it is that I actually needed, which you won't know until you've gone out a while. You can figure out, oh, I need this and I need that. But a portable power bank will basically help you with all the things that you need powering. But at some point, if you're able, having both systems is great. Like for me, having a dual battery setup in the Jeep makes a lot of things easier. Anything that's hardwired to the vehicle is running off of that secondary battery, and I don't have to worry about my vehicle dying. Now I actually even keep the fridge just plugged into the Jeep and running when I'm at home, because then when we hit the grocery store, I have a fridge that's already cool. At the same time, when it's sitting in the driveway, then the solar is charging up my secondary battery, which is running my fridge. So the fridge can now stay plugged up into the vehicle 24 hours a day because there's power out of that secondary battery, and we're driving the Jeep around every day. So as I'm driving, it's recharging that battery too. Whereas the power bank, you can't really do that. Again, you can plug it up to your vehicle, but it's not gonna charge as fast. You're gonna have to charge it up at home, and having a dual battery setup allows me to keep powered all the things that are hardwired into the vehicle, and now I don't have to bring a humongous capacity power bank with me, which are heavier. I can bring the smaller ones. I can bring like the Jackery 240 or the Bluetti AC70, which is a smaller one, much lighter, and is very, very portable with all the stuff that I'm bringing already to camp. Everything from off-road gear to cooking and all the stuff that we need at camp. Then I would love to be able to save some space by not having to bring a large capacity power bank because I have a dual battery setup. So when you get a chance, at some point, consider getting a dual battery setup because it's a game changer. It really, really is. But if that's not something that's in your budget right now, or it's not something you want to tackle, then just get a portable power bank. Get yourself a power bank and be good with that until at some point you may want to have both systems running in your vehicle. For me, that is the ideal setup, which is why I am loving it right now. But that's my spiel: dual battery versus portable power bank. Which one is better? I wanted to do this video because I've been there. I got to the point where I was just tormenting myself. Do I want a dual battery setup, or should I just get portable power banks? Now that I have both, I can't really tell you which way is better, because I like having both systems in the vehicle, and I have the power to run anything I want, to the point where it's even overkill. There's not much that I really run on this thing. But I hope that this video helped you in making that decision. If you don't have any, which way you should go, and if you already have a portable power bank, whether or not it's worth upgrading to a dual battery setup, or if you're good with what you have. If you found this video helpful, I hope it did. I was just pretty much up here rambling. Please make sure you smash, actually, don't smash, torment yourself with this decision as well on whether or not you should hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel, click that notification bell so we can let you be aware of new videos when they come out. And if it moves you, support us on Patreon. It gives you access to all of our videos before anyone else. At least I try every week to get it as early as possible. And it gives you access to our live streams when we do them, which I do plan to do a lot more live streams in 2024. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy Holidays for those that don't celebrate Christmas. But today is Christmas, Jesus' birthday, and so that's why I'm saying Merry Christmas. See y'all next year.